So good morning. Today's daf is Ketubot daf kaf aleph, and we get to begin with a new Mishnah, and so we can dive right in. The Mishnah is going to talk about, how if we have a written document, we confirm the signatures to make sure that it's a valid document. So if I write a contract with you and we sign at the bottom, and we have two witnesses sign at the bottom, so then how do I know? How do we validate that contract? So if one of the witnesses at the bottom who signed at the bottom of the contract says, this is my signature and this is my friend's signature, and the other one says, this other signature is my signature, and the other one belongs to my friend who also signed with me. So now we've confirmed that both people recognize their own signature and recognize the other witness's signature. Well, then then they're believed this is a valid contract, etc. And it's an enforceable contract. What happens if each one says that they only recognize their own signature and they don't recognize somebody else's signature? And the other one says that this one is my signature. So then you need one additional person to confirm each person's signature. So if you, Mark, and you, James, both sign on the bottom of a contract, and you each only recognize your own signature, but you don't recognize the other signatures, you will need me to come and recognize the two of your signatures. And then what do we have? We have two signatures for each signature. We have two witnesses for each signature. That is Divrei Rebbe. That's what? Including, well, I'm not involved. We're going to assume that I'm not involved. Yes, you can witness your own signature. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. You can witness your own signature. And so we continue with the Mishnah at the bottom of Kaf Amud Bet, and we say, the Chachamim say, however, that if you, Mark, and you, James, each only witness your own signature and don't know about the other person's signature, so you don't recognize James' signature and James doesn't recognize your signature, you don't need another witness. A person is believed to say, this is my signature. And so as a result, we effectively have two witnesses who agree to the validity of the document. And so as a result, even though all that James has witnessed is his own signature, all that Mark has witnessed is his own signature, the Chachamim say that's sufficient. Okay, so now we're going to go into and explain the views of Rebbe and the Chachamim. So I'm going to leave the top part up so we can see exactly where we were. So Kishatim say Lomar. So when you think about this, so L'divrei Rebbe, according to Rebbe, what's the rationale? Al ksam yadan heim me'idim, right? The Rebbe is saying that what you need is two witnesses for their own signatures. And so as a result, you need two witnesses for each signature. And so if in fact you only recognize your signature, well, then we're going to need, if you're the only one who recognizes your own signature, we're going to need somebody else to help and participate. But l'divrei chachamim almana shebishtar heimeidim. But according to the chachamim, when you witness your own signature and when James witnesses his own signature, what you're really witnessing is you're agreeing that the underlying facts are the facts. And so as a result, even though you're only recognizing your signature and James is only recognizing James's signature, we have two witnesses to the underlying facts. So Pshita, isn't that obvious? So Ma'udetema l'Rebbe Sfuki Misafkale. I might have thought that the reason that the Rebbe requires two witnesses is because, in fact, he had an uncertainty. And it wasn't that he thought that they were testifying about specifically their signatures, but rather he was unsure about whether they were testifying about their signatures or about the underlying mana. And why would that make a difference? Because if in fact, and what is there again? What's the uncertainty? He was uncertain whether they were testifying about the signatures or about the underlying facts, namely the maneh that was loaned. So v'nafkamina, and what's the difference? So if one of them were to die, if one of the witnesses were to die, and so as a result they would not be able to testify about it. So liboy shnayim min hashuk lahayid alav. Do you need two witnesses to come in from the marketplace? Meaning, is it sufficient for there to be one witness to come in, or do you need two witnesses? De'im kain, because if in fact you would say that there was an uncertainty associated with this issue, and that's why Rebbe was saying that you need a second witness for both signatures. Well, kanafik riva de mamona apumech dechad sada. Would you be allowed to have one witness testify to 3/4 of what's going on, and the other witness testify just to 1/4? So, meaning that according to if you have this uncertainty about whether or not you're testifying about the $100 that was owed or the signatures, well, then when you have one person who's testifying to who is a witness on the document, testifying to his own signature and to the other person's signature, and also testifying to the underlying facts. Well, he's the one that doing the underlying facts, so he's got 50% of the coverage right there, and he's 50% of the witnesses on the signatures. So that makes him 75% of the witnesses, and we need 50% of witnessing from both parties. You can't have this discrepancy. At least that's the assumption of the Gemara. And so as a result, and so as a result, when Rebbe would effectively end up saying that when each witness only testifies to their own signature, you need one additional witness to testify to both their signatures. And in a situation where one witness testifies to both their signatures and to the underlying facts, but the other witness has passed away, you actually need two witnesses to come and effectively start things over from scratch and recognize both signatures. And because the two witnesses will recognize both signatures, they'll be the ones that end up testifying and covering the entire document. So Kamash Milan, the Rebbe Mishra Pshitale, that actually Rebbe was sure, he was not uncertain whether the people were coming to witness the mana, the $100 that was owed, the underlying facts of the document, or their signatures. He's certain that in fact that they're witnessing their signatures, and therefore bein lekula, bein lechumra, doesn't make a difference whether it's for a leniency or a stringency. He is going to say that the witnesses are there about their signatures and not about the underlying facts. And we have additional support for this idea because the Amar of Yehuda, Amar Rav, Shnayim hachasumin al hashtar umeis echad mihan. If you have two people who were signatories to a document and one of them died, so what is it that the Chachamim end up saying? This is Rav Yehuda in the name of Rab, who's thereby telling us what is required according to the Chachamim. The majority opinion is that you need two witnesses to come and testify from the marketplace. Again, because if we only allow one, so then you would end up with one witness testifying to 3/4 of the matter. So so in this way, Rebbe, who seemed more strict in our Mishnah because he required the additional witness that the Chachamim did not, here now he is the one who is less strict, and it's the Chachamim who are more strict. Please, Hanan.
How am I supposed to get a witness to testify that that's somebody's signature? Who knows other people's signature?
Well, in a society where that was we'll actually deal with this in a situation where the witness is alive in a moment. But
I mean, I know what my signature looks like, but I don't know what anybody else, and then, my wife's maybe, but I can't testify to what other people's signature looks like.
Right, but I think it's important to remember that we've moved from a written world to an electronic world. In a written world where you were getting letters on a regular basis from people,
I see.
and other communications, and where recognizing signatures became a really important aspect of enforcing documents. So then, you'll have people who will recognize people's signatures, and we will see that in monetary matters, we will allow the judges themselves to serve as the witnesses. And of course, if you have people who serve as judges to enforce contracts on a regular basis, and you have witnesses who work on those, who write their names on those contracts on a regular basis, because obviously in those days, not everybody was literate. And so, you will likely have the same people appearing over and over again. And so the judges may themselves be able to be witness of the underlying facts. And we're going to deal with that shortly.
The other thing is, this is just historical, but are they writing in like Hebrew script or something like that? Or is that, or?
That's a good question. I don't know sort of what ksav they were writing in. I think
my Hebrew signature is just basically, it's not really a signature. You know what I mean?
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. My signature, heck, even my English signature is pretty much just what my name in script. So, when I get those electronic online signatures that have just a nice script to them, it looks very much like my signature. So I know exactly what you mean. So, but I would say the following, and that is that they whatever it is, it doesn't really make a difference, even if it's just literally an X marks the spot kind of signature. I think that the point is that everybody makes their X's a little different, and that we're assuming that there's enough there to go on to recognize a different signature. Okay, so yes. So the Rebbe is, so let's do them both, right? So Rebbe is more strict. If you recognize your signature and Mark recognizes his signature, we need an additional witness for Rebbe, but not for Chacham. So everybody's going to win because we're all working together in this. So now the situation where Rebbe is less strict is the following: if in fact, we'll say witness number A. Witness A says that is still alive, so they recognize their own signature and the other person's signature. And now the other witness has passed away. So now the question is how many witnesses do you need? So according to the Chachamim, you need 2 witnesses because we no longer have the testimony about the underlying facts that we had. So we need 2 witnesses to confirm both signatures, 2 separate witnesses to confirm both signatures. Correct. And so as a result, we need 2 new witnesses. Whereas Rebbe, because he's focused only on the signatures, so as a result, he only needs 1 additional witness because the witness A has testified to both signatures, so you only need 1 additional witness to match it. Okay, so we continue. What happens if there's only 1 witness to come? So Amar Abaye, lichto chasimus yadei achaspa. The other witness, can confirm his own signature, right? So again, we have one witness, only one witness is around to, and he recognizes both signatures, but now there's no, but the other witness doesn't exist and isn't there to recognize both signatures. So Amar Abaye lifto chasimas yadei achas, but he can write his signature. The surviving witness writes his signature on a piece of pottery. The shadei lei bevei dina, and he tosses it to the court, meaning he gives it effectively to the court. Umasake le beidina, and now the court can verify his signature. V'lo tzarich ihu la'asude achasimas yadei, and so now he doesn't have to testify about his own signature. V'azil ihu v'hai misade aidach, and now he and another person from the market can go and testify to the other person's signature. So what happens is, now in the situation where we had one witness recognizing both signatures, what we can do is have now two people, have the court confirm the signature of the living witness, and the living witness and one additional person can confirm the signature of the deceased person. And now you don't need two people from the marketplace. So this is a way that the rabbis, the chachamim, who say in that or other situation you would need two new witnesses, now you can only use one new witness and thereby prove both signatures.
How does the court do that? How does the court
Because
know?
they're given they're given a signature
Oh,
by the witness,
I
and they
see.
compare the chaspa, they compare
I got
the
it.
pottery. So now we're the davka achaspa, and now the Gemara is giving like effectively good advice, and it says specifically the witness should write it on a shard of alamagilta lo, but not on a scroll, because dilma mashkach hu la inish delo mali. Maybe a person who is not a fully honest person will find this signature because of ilave my boy, and he'll write on it whatever he wants. And what do we call that document today? The document that has a blank check. That's exactly right. It's a blank check. So utnan. All right. So now I will note that Tosos writes here v'davka achasba, and he writes the first three words, second Tosos on kaf aleph amud aleph. That if you write it at the top of the document, you'll also be okay. But in any event, the bottom line is that you need to be careful about accidentally writing a blank check. Utnan, and indeed we have a Mishnah that sort of confirms this. Hotzi alav ksav yado shehu chayav lo. If the lender has and how do we know that that's a real big risk, that a blank check kind of document exists, that a check works in Judaism? The answer is because if you have a lender who says, here's the written document in the handwriting of the borrower, so then gova minachasam b'nei chorin, he's allowed to collect from unencumbered property. Now, why only unencumbered property? Because there were no separate multiple witnesses on the document. It's just the check. We're not going to use the principle of saying that you can collect from liened property, property that is capable of being liened. The idea is as follows: if in fact you write a contract with somebody and that you're going to owe them money, and you have two or more signatories, two or more witnesses on the document, everybody becomes knowledgeable in the community that you owe the money. And as a result, when somebody buys real estate from you, if they buy a piece of property, that property will be considered encumbered by the loan. And so as a result, if in fact you are unable to pay back the loan, the lender to you will be able to go to the purchaser of your property and collect from that property. And so that is the difference between a contract that has separate signatures on it and a contract where only the debtor himself signs. And so we're now talking about where the debtor himself signs, and that is still collectible. And that's what we learned from this Mishnah, which comes from Baba Basra. Okay, so Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, halacha kedivrei chachamim. Shmuel says that the halacha is like the chachamim. And Pshita, Yaakov v'Rabim, halacha karabim. Of course it's like the chachamim. The chachamim are multiple people, and Rebbe is a single individual. Well, ma'odatema halacha karabi mechabe ro. So there's a principle that the halacha follows Rebbe when he argues with anyone. Well, one might think that when we say that the halacha is like Rebbe, even if when he follows anyone, maybe maybe it would also apply even when he is faced with multiple colleagues. So Kamash Malan, Shmuel's statement is teaching us that in fact that is not the case. So now we're going to have second. So now we're going to challenge whether or not Shmuel really said this statement, that the halacha is like the chachamim, because we will see a case in which he seems to have required additional witnesses. And then we'll explain that that situation was unique, but in fact does not contradict. So Siman Nachnad Chad, that we're going to see that there are a variety of different people who these statements could have been made by, and the way to remember it is Nach, Nad, and Chad. So let's go through. So Amrle Rav Chinana bar Chia. So we got the Na and the Chi there, Rav Yehuda. Va'amrila Rav Huna bar Yehuda, Rav Yehuda. So some people say it was not Rav Chanina, but rather Rav Huna, and it was said to Rav Yehuda. So va'amrila Rav Chia bar Yehuda le Rav Yehuda, and some say it was Rav Chia bar Yehuda. So again, we're using different letters. So sometimes the first letter, sometimes the last syllable. But in any event, the point is that's the trick to remember who these three different people that we were thinking said to Rav Yehuda. And what did he say? Umi Amar Shmuel Hachi. Did Shmuel actually say this? We had this contract that came to the Beit Din of Shmuel, and it was written on it. So and that they and Midiasa Rav Anan Barchia v'asid Chasimas Yedei. We had Rav Anan Barchia, he came and testified about his signature, v'adechad imei, and on the person who signed with him, umanu, and who was that? Rav Chanan bar Rabba. It was Rav Chanan bar Rabba. Umidiasa Rav Chanan bar Rabba v'asid Chasimas Yedei, v'adechad imei, umanu Rav Anan Barchia, and who came, and Rav Chanan bar Abba also came and testified about his signature and the signature that was with him, namely Rav Anan Barchia. So we've got total confirmation. So Ashuruni v'kiyamnui kidechazi, and so we reinforced it and certified it as a good contract. This is what was written in the court certification. So what do we see? We see that Shmuel seems to have required witnesses, both the witnesses, to confirm both the signatures. That was the position of Rebbe. So Amar Le, so Rav Yehuda explains, Hahu Shtara de Yasmi Hava. That was a star that belonged to certain orphans. V'chash Shmuel based in Toin. And Shmuel was worried that another court might make a mistake. The Savar Shmuel, Dilma Ika Desfiru Le Halacha Karabi Mechabe Ro below Mechabe Rab. That Shmuel thought that maybe there's a court that holds that although the halacha normally follows Rebbe over one person, but not multiple people, uvaha afilu mechabe Rab. Maybe in this case it would be an exception, and it would be even over multiple people. And so Saver Avid Ravcha. So I'm going to do what it takes to make sure that the orphans don't lose the money that is coming to them. So therefore, he confirmed the contract in a way that nobody would have any doubts about it. And that's, frankly, it's what a good advice is, that if you have a way to confirm something according to everybody, do so that you don't have to worry about any alternative read. Oh, well, if it went to, let's say you needed to go somewhere else in order to confirm the contract because of, you wanted to collect from some, maybe the person had property in another town, and so you bring this contract, and if it's written on it that the contract was confirmed with each witness recognizing only their own signature, the other court will say, well, we can't enforce this because you need to have both witnesses confirming both signatures. So that's why Shmuel chose to write on basically imagine like a stamp that the court would put on a contract to indicate its enforceability. Okay. It was exactly. It's like a plumba. That's exactly right. So Amar Leh. So Amar of Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Ad V'dayan Mitztarfin. Oh, I'm sorry. Aid V'dayan Mitztarfin. A witness and a judge can combine to authenticate a contract. Namely, that you can have one witness say that this is my signature and I recognize the other signature, and a judge can also recognize either the other signature or both signatures, and together they can work the whole document out without anybody else, without necessarily resorting to the pottery. So Amar Rami Bar Shchama Kama Ma'alya Hashmaita. Wow, that's amazing if that's possible, because that would make life a lot easier for people enforcing contracts. So Amar Rava, my Ma'alya. So 1 second, why do you say that this is so great? My masid sada lo kamasid ayana. 1 second. What the witness is testifying about, the judge is not testifying about. My kamasid dayana lo kamasid sahada. And what the judge is testifying about, the witness is not testifying about. Meaning the witness is testifying according to the Chachamim about the underlying transaction, but the judge is testifying to the signatures. So that shouldn't work. And indeed, as a result of that tough question, in fact, we're going to reject Rav Yehuda in the name of Shmuel's ruling. Ela ki asa Rami Bar Yechezkel Amar lo titzasinhu lahani klali dechayil Yehuda achi mishmei Shmuel. So Rami, the brother of Yehuda, says, don't listen to Yehuda, my brother, what he says in the name of Shmuel, because that is not, in fact, the halacha. That you're getting yourself confused. And so as a result, don't listen to him. So we turn now to Kaf Aleph Amavbet, and we say, Ikla Ravnai Achua de Rabbi Chia Bar Abam Lemizban Shum Shmei. So Ravnai, the brother of Rabbi Chia Bar Abba, came in to buy some sesame seeds in a particular location. V'amar Haki Amar Shmuel, and he said again, also in the name of Shmuel, Eid v'dayan mitztarfin, that a witness and a judge can come together to authenticate a contract. And Amar Ameimer, Kama Ma'alya Hashmaisa. And Ameimer said, wow, that's amazing. Amar Leah Ravashi La Ameimer, but Ravashi said to Ameimer, Mishum de Kasla Abua de Imach at Nami Makalsta La. So because your mother's father, so Rami Bar Chama, said that this was amazing, you're also going to praise it? So Kvar Parcha Rabba has already asked the question on it, and thereby shown that it is not a valid statement. So in fact, we say a witness and a judge cannot work together, because according to the Chachamim, they're testifying about different things. According to the Chachamim, the witness is testifying about the underlying mana, and the judges are testifying to the authenticity of the signatures. So they fine.
The witness was not testifying about his signature.
Well, he is, but we treat him as
the other case was that the witness right? The judge could authenticate one, and the other guy authenticates the other, right?
Right. Well, remember that what we ended up saying is that the way you need that there are two ways to handle the situation where one of the witnesses is not present. So one is you bring two other witnesses from the marketplace who recognize both of their signatures. That could work. Or if you have one person who recognizes both of their signatures, then you can have the present witness sign on a piece of pottery, and then he will testify to his own signature, and that will be sufficient. And the and then I'm sorry, he and the other witness will testify to the other witness's signature, and then the judges will testify and confirm his signature. So the basically when you
we're not saying you can't do that here, or this is
we're not saying you can't do that here. What we are saying is that you can't have one witness with one judge. That's not going to be sufficient. That's what we're saying here. And the reason is that you have to go in one of the modes. Either you need two witnesses about both signatures, or you need the two witnesses to the underlying facts of the contract along with their own signatures. So if you don't have the two witnesses confirming the underlying facts with their own signatures, then we need to move into a let's find two witnesses for each signature perspective. And so that's why the chaspa can work, because we go from mode number one of both witnesses testifying to the underlying facts along with their own signature to a mode of just testifying to the signatures themselves without addressing the underlying facts. And if we have two witnesses that both recognize the signatures of the two witnesses, well, then we'll assume that the underlying facts are good. Okay, so Amar Rav Safra. We're going to now turn to the situation where there are two of the three judges themselves have knowledge about the signatures in the contract. So let's take a look and see what happens. So Amar Safra, Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Bar Shmuel, Bar Marta, Amar Rav Huna. So everything was said in the name of Rav Huna. But Amrila, Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav, and some people say it goes even further back to Rav. We got three judges sitting to confirm a document. Two of them recognize the signatures of the witnesses at the bottom of the contract. What do? So, and one of them does not. Ad shelo chasmu. So until they sign the certification, me'idim b'fanav v'chosim. Well, then those two judges can testify in front of the third judge and say, we recognize both of the signatures and will serve as like the witnesses, and therefore, then they can all sign the certification. Mishachasmu, however, once those two witnesses have signed the certification, because the certification says that that all three of the judges recognize the signatures or are confirming the signatures, then ein me'idim b'fanav v'chosim. They can no longer testify before the remaining judge. So if we take a look in Rashi, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 10 lines, 11 or 12 lines down, mishachasmu ein me'idim, dechasima kamaisa b'shakra hava, delav tulasa havu diyade. That the signature that they do before they testified is going to be false, because their signature is saying that the three judges confirm. And so because the three judges are not yet ready to confirm, because they haven't yet given the testimony to the third judge, and the third judge doesn't know anything about it, they can't go ahead and do that. So umi kasvinan, 1 second, but how could they even write the certification? The Gemara wonders. V'ha'amar of papi mishmei durava hai asharta the daine. This judicial certification, the nichtav mikame If it was written before the witnesses testify about the signatures, Sula, he says that it's puzzle, the mischaze kishikra, because it looks like it's going to be a falsehood. So hachinami mischaze b'shikra, kishikra. So to here, it looks like something that's false. So ela ema ad shelo kasvu me'idin b'fanav chosim. So actually, yes, you're right. Let's revise what we said. And it's not that we have to have the witnesses, the judges testify to the third judge before they sign. They have to testify to the third judge before they even write the certification. And as long as that happens, then everything is fine. But mishikasvu ein me'idin b'fanav chosim. But once they write the certification, even if they haven't even signed it yet, it looks too much like a falsehood, and so we're not going to allow it. So Shema Mina plus. So we learned three things from this story. So Shema Mina Nasa Dayan, aid Nasa Dayan. We learned that a witness, an aid can become a judge. Ushma Mina Dayan and Hamakirin Chasimos Yedei Eidim Einam Tzrichan Laha'id Bifneihem. That if you have all three judges recognize the signatures, well, then you don't need anybody to testify in front of them. And we learn from it that if judges don't recognize the signatures, then you need witnesses to testify before each and every one of them. Well, now what we're going to do now is we're going to reject those number 2 and number 3 of the 3 different things that we learned, because and we'll see how. So Maskif lo Rav Ashi. So Rav Ashi says that's not true. So Bishlama Eid Nas and Dayan Shaminam. All right, I got that you can show from here that a witness can become a judge, because what do we have happening? We have 3 judges, 2 of them jump out and become witnesses, and then they become judges again, and they testify and they write on the bottom of the contract the fact that they've certified this contract. So, but Ella Dayan and Hamakirin Chasimos Yedei Edim Ein Tzrichin Laha'id B'Fneihem. But as far as the fact that if the judges all recognize the signatures, that you don't need testimony before them, Dilma La'olam Eimelach Tzrichin. I could tell you that you do need the shiny hacha to come Mekaima Haggadah B'chad. And here we fulfill that requirement because the 2 judges testify before the 3rd judge. So maybe you do need the testimony, and it could be in the format of 2 of the judges testifying, but maybe we do need some sort of testimony as part of the legal proceedings. And similarly, with respect to number 3, the dayanin she'ein makirin chasimas yedei edim tzrikin la'ed b'fnei kol echad ve'echad. Now, in our case, we have the 3rd judge who didn't recognize the signatures, and yes, in fact, the 2 other judges testify before him. But Dilma la'olam eimelach ein tzrikin. I could tell you that maybe in an appropriate case, maybe let's say where all 3 judges didn't know about it, maybe you don't need to testify in front of each and every judge. Maybe it would be fine to testify just in front of 1 or 2 of the judges. And here, because we have a requirement to some sort of testimony, that's why it ended up being that you ended up fulfilling essentially all of the judges being testified in front of. So that's why so you've disproved the 2nd and the 3rd teachings, meaning not that they necessarily aren't true, but you've not proven the opposite, but you can't use this story to prove those facts. So Yosef Rabbi Abba the Ka'amar law lahashmaita da aid nasa dayan. So Rabbi Abba was telling this teaching about a witness becoming a judge. So Eisvei Rav Safra Rabbi Abba, and Rav Safra asked the question, because we have a Mishnah that we learned together in Maseches Rosh Hashanah. Ra'ua Shlosha. If you have 3 people who saw the new moon, Vehain Beistin, and they were all members of the Beit Din, Yamdu Shnayim, 2 of them should actually testify. The Yoshivu Mechavereim Eitzel Hayachid, and they need to get two other people to replace them on the court, so that the two people who were judges can now testify as witnesses before three judges. And then the three judges respond that the month is sanctified, that it's sanctified. So she'ena yachid ne'eman al yedei atzmo, because a person is not trusted to testify for himself. Now, if we actually say that a witness can become a judge, lama li kulahai, why do we have to bother going through this entire aggravating circumstance of finding two other judges? Let them, go after they testify, let them go back to their place and sit down and serve as the judges and sanctify the month. So Amrle, Afludidi Kashali. Rav Safra says back, Rav Abba says back to Rav Safra, I had this question as well, and I didn't know the answer. Ashelte Rav Yitzchak bar Shmuel bar Mata, and I asked Rav Yitzchak, and Rav Yitzchak Rav Huna, Rav Huna Lachia bar Rav, and Rav Yitzchak asked Rav Huna, and Rav Huna asked Rav Chia. So basically, we had a lot of people who were unsure. Lachia bar Rav Rav, the Amr Lahu, and Rav responded to him. Now, the difference is that testimony about the new moon is a required biblical construct. But the kiyum shtaros derabanan. But when it comes to the confirming of a document, of a contract, that is only rabbinic. And so now, God willing, we'll pick up tomorrow and discuss the qualification, a challenge to this qualification of the judges. So what happens if somebody says that one of the judges is not appropriate as a judge? And then we'll pick up with our next Mishnah on Kaf Bet Amud Aleph, which will talk about we'll return back to the concept of Pesha Asar, Hu HaPesha Heter, where a person says something that is against their interest, but then says something that defends their interest, and we'll say that we're going to believe them, and we're going to talk about that in the context of a woman testifying to her marital status. So we will see that all, God willing, tomorrow.
It's like they're making it kind of hard to collect on your contract,
So the third, yes. Well, it's not simple to collect on your contract, and it highlights the fact that what you want to do is use the same witnesses. I wonder whether witnesses charged for this, if they became well known for having very nice flourishing signatures, so that the judges would easily recognize them. That they would, you'd have these paid witnesses that you would always be. But in any event, that's what I'm thinking. But James asked, what was the third lesson? So the third lesson was that if any of the three judges do not recognize the signatures, there must be testimony in front of them in order for them to then certify the contract. And the proof for that was the fact that when we had the three judges, two of them recognized, they had to testify to the third, and so that's what happened. But the response is maybe the point is you just need some sort of public testimony, and it doesn't actually have to be in front of the three judges. So for example, let's say we had two witnesses come in and recognize both of the signatures, and then they could testify, and maybe one of the judges was out of the room at the moment, and they could testify to two of the judges, and then the two of the judges could say that we received the testimony and therefore everything's copacetic. So it doesn't mean that that's in fact legal. It's just you can't prove this teaching otherwise. So that's the story. Okay, so God willing, we'll pick up tomorrow, and wonderful to be learned together again. These dapim are it's not quite as head spinning as Yevamot, and we'll be both in person and online for God willing the rest of this month, and then next month I understand that Dove will also be in person on Mondays and Tuesdays, although I will be covering for most of August for him. I will note that a week from this Friday, I will only be remote. I will, of course, remind you beforehand, but just so that if you're planning your weeks. Yes, Erev Tisha B'Av. Yes, Tisha B'Av is coming. Have a great day. Great to see you, Stan. Feel free to be in person tomorrow, God willing.
Next Wednesday, Thursday.
Yes, we're going to be, hold on, I'm just going to finish this and then